Zak Brown has been quite vocal about the recent changes in Red Bull and doing a lot of what he does best, throwing shots at them. The CEO of the Woking-based squad is making sure that his fiercest rivals know what he has on his mind will always be spoken loudly. However, with his team being far from perfect and missing out on those opportunities to close the gap even further to Red Bull in both championships, should Brown focus more on his team rather than the drivers' happenings in the Austrian squad? And more importantly, do they have something ready for the last 10 races of the season? It's safe to say that the primary focus of the 2024 season has been on the Perez seat, mostly because of the fact that rumours have surfaced about Verstappen being told that he will have a new teammate from Zandvoort onwards, which could have been confirmed by the fact that he and Ricciardo were taking champagne to the helicopter's ride home and they were celebrating something, which was definitely not the results from the race. But a day later, and Horner and Marco went out with a statement that was pretty weird for the entire F1 world. Perez gets to stay for the remainder of 2024, which was not how we were thinking this was going to go down after his terrible P8 finish, as he got to start P2 and potentially had an opportunity to win the race from that position, given the fact that the RB20 excelled at Spa. This is something that also caught Zak Brown by surprise, who went on to comment about the latest happenings in Red Bull, calling it strange and something that he finds quite hard to understand. Elaborating on the situation that's happening within the Austrian squad right now, revolving around the drivers' lineup, Brown said, yeah, Red Bull are in a tricky situation. They have kind of found themselves in a situation where they've got two teams and a young driver program. They have kind of found themselves in this situation where they've got one driver leading the championship and now the other is 7th in the championship. Great racing drivers, both have won races, so we all know Perez is capable of winning at any point, but he seems to be in a bit of an issue at the moment. I don't know all that's going on there, but it's for them to sort it out. I am happy I don't have driver challenges. It is a sly dig towards Red Bull, as Brown has stated loud and clear that there is no drama happening between Piastri and Norris, even though the Hungarian GP went on to state otherwise in terms of the on-track situation. While Norris said that his relationship with Piastri is now much better than it was before the race, it's safe to assume that having two competitive drivers on the grid is something that is always poised to make a lot of team members and race engineers nervous, because at a certain point, the fight on the track will be much harsher and the team order won't necessarily apply to each other, as we've seen with the 2016 Mercedes situation. Zak Brown is not the only one who threw shots at Red Bull, as you can probably imagine, as Norris went on to say that the team missed out on the best driver available on the grid, Carlos Sainz, while Red Bull have decided to focus on Perez and improving his form in the next 10 races. Norris believes that a massive mistake has been made by them when it comes to missing out on Sainz's signature. Further adding, I don't know what Red Bull's plans are. Honestly, the easy one is just to say Red Bull. Sainz should have gone there in my eyes. Obviously, I am biased. I know Carlos more than I know Perez and that kind of thing, but Carlos deserves a lot. He is one of the best drivers in Formula 1. He has proven that countless times, and I am a good friend of his, you know. But on the other hand, Helmut Marko hasn't kept quiet in the current situation either that has ravaged McLaren, with the veteran Austrian saying that Piastri is a lot more mentally stronger than Norris. As he went on to say, I don't know what the point difference is between both McLaren drivers, but it seems like Piastri is mentally the stronger one. Oscar has gradually closed the gap to Lando and is even faster at times, but we will see how the situation turns out. The gap between Norris and Piastri currently stands at 32 points, and Piastri is just 10 points behind Leclerc, who has 2 more podiums than the Austrian driver. But with the current form of McLaren, Norris might have to worry about a fight from his own teammate rather than a challenge towards Max. And when talking about the opportunity to fight with the Dutchman and take away the title from his hands in the next 10 races, Norris said, "It's always nice to say things like that, that and have optimism, I've got to work on myself and work on a few things first. I feel like I've had the car and I've got what I need around me. I've probably made a few too many mistakes over the last month or so. I've lost opportunities. A lot of stuff now in F1, a small difference will have a big consequence because it's so close. This is why Brown would also be smart to look at his team's strategies and focus on what is happening in that field, as Norris missed out on tons of points in races like Canada, Silverstone and Hungary due to bad starts and bad strategies. Norris is, in fact, the only driver to either keep his position in lap 1 or lose it and not gain a single place on the grid, which is definitely hurting his chances of better race finishes if we are to see how Piastri's starts are compared to his teammate. Be that as it may, McLaren now have a legitimate chance of winning the Constructors' Championship, something that was poised to happen in 2025, as Zak Brown's promise to Norris was that in this year the team would have a car that would be ready to fight for the championship. And now that the team delivered it earlier, it will be interesting to see whether they can mount a bigger pressure on Red Bull in the Drivers' Championship too. While Norris is not very happy with his chances at the remainder of the season, as well as all of the opportunities that he's missed in the first 14 races of the campaign, but Brown believes that the upgrades will definitely help his team take the fight up until Abu Dhabi. As he elaborated, our plan is to bring more upgrades to the car. That being said, we know how quickly the sport moves, so we need to keep doing what we are doing. We do have more upgrades coming throughout the year, but so do our competitors, so I see no reason why we can't be at the front. Every race is the balance of the year. That is where we've been pretty much all year. So that is certainly our plan, but now we need to just continue excelling. Although the remainder of the calendar suits McLaren's cars a lot, given the fact that they are venues like Zandvoort and Singapore to race in, we should be looking at a very competitive outing from the MCL 38, because from what was able to be obtained up until this point is that this is the car that doesn't struggle under any circumstances. Of course, the low downforce tracks like Monza could be something that Red Bull will sweep by, but not nearly as dominantly as they were used to. But nevertheless, we should not forget about Mercedes, the team that is now certainly a continuous podium challenger with a race-winning car, as Brown has also acknowledged the risk from the Silver Arrows in the Constructors' Championship is definitely something that his team should keep an eye on too. Elaborating more about this threat, Brown has also taken an interesting dig towards Red Bull, as he feels like Mercedes is now the bigger challenger that they need to worry about than Red Bull, considering they struggle with the drivers' lineup. As he said, we want to beat all 9 teams. Ferrari is not far behind us, so I think you can't rule them out. Mercedes is on pace, won the last 3 of the last 4 races. Fortunately, we've got about a 100-point gap to Mercedes, and we might need every one of those points if they continue on the path they are on. I expect them to be super strong in the second half of the year, so I'm glad we got a little bit of cushion. The situation within Red Bull is definitely far from perfect, and as all things stand, they will continue with the struggles in the remainder of the season because of the fact that they continued the collaboration with the driver who managed to score only 28 points in the last 8 races. However, if you are McLaren and Zak Brown, while keeping an eye on the rivals and throwing sly digs left, right and centre, you should also be focused on your team and the strategies that are being employed race after race, because the driver who is second in the championship has scored 10 points less than his teammate in this 8 race span. Therefore, with an equal amount of race wins, McLaren now cannot really prioritise one over the other, as Helmut Marko stated that the mental state in which Piastri is in is probably a stronger one than that of Norris, which is seen through his delivery on the track. With all this in mind, do you think that the comments of Brown are just a bit cheeky and actually quite needed at this time where Red Bull are departing with members that have been part of their team for 18 years? Or more importantly, do you think that they have what it takes to win the Constructors' Championship and pose a real threat in the drivers' category? Let us know what you're thinking down in the comments below, and once you've done that, have a look at the video that's appearing on your screen right now.